Hi developers, subscribers and friends, welcome to the ForDeveloper channel. I am Stefan Bertos and I have a couple of questions. Do you know what is an API gateway? Do you know all of its features? Do you know how to deploy this, how to secure it, monitor it? Do you know the limitations, pricing? And do you know answers to these questions? If it's yes, then please skip this video and watch the other videos on my channel. If the answer is no, please stay and watch the full tutorial and I will explain everything which is there to know. By the way, do you also know that Google has a free tier? If not, Google free tier or free trial, and you can create your own free trial project and account and use the $300 and 12 months credit, and you can play around with all the tutorials and all the products. So check it out. For the whole tutorial, I assume you have already a project, and if you want to step by step build the same, then you should have it and open the product console. So let me show the picture and let's start with some theory first. So this is a picture of a not so simple architecture where we will use the API gateways in multiple locations, and something like that you can create if you like for production, obviously. So what is a API gateway? So API gateway is a product where you can develop, deploy, secure your API and manage API for Google serverless products like Cloud Function, Cloud Run, App Engine, or as well for non-serverless products in like Compute Engine or Kubernetes. API gateway is also an entry point for your users or consumers, so they would access your API gateway and accessing your API. But for them, they would just see what is public on the API gateway. They wouldn't see, for example, your internal implementation, which would be in Cloud Function or Cloud Run. So what does it mean then? So it means that until you don't change the contract on the public API, you can replace the implementations on the backends, you can change the technology and so on. So API gateway is built on Envoy, and you can think about this as a managed service from Google. It has a couple of features. I will just speak about the ones which I think are important. So first feature is flexible deployment. You can deploy API gateway into multiple locations. Like for example, on the picture, we have two locations, Europe West and US. Of course, you can have more. There are as well some limitations. I will speak about that later on. So that's the first locations. Second one would be security. You can secure API gateway by API key or service account. In the tutorial, I will show the security by the API keys. Then you can protect your API gateways from, I don't know, from hackers or malicious usage. In this kind of a configuration, if you have a cloud load balancing in front of the gateways, you can also leverage Cloud Armor, which will strengthen the security. And then on the top, there is also standard monitoring from Google. So you will get some metrics, you can configure quotas, limits, and so on. There is more to tell. For example, you can use caching by using the Cloud CDN, because API Gateway itself doesn't have a caching implementation, but you still can use Google Cloud products, which, as you see on the picture, if you put Cloud CDN in front of the cloud load balancing, then it will cache the requests. And that's it for the picture. In this tutorial, we will not build this complex example, but just a simple one like this, where we will have one API gateway and one backend Cloud Function. So what will the API represent. So in this case, I chosen again a user REST API from the Sonatype project, and basically it's very simple user API. I didn't implement all of the details from the API, but just the standard stuff like get users, which is a get, then create users, which is a post, and then update users, which is a put, and obviously delete users. So all the links will be in the description, so you can check this documentation if you like. And to start with, we need to create our OpenAPI specification or documentation in the correct format. And for API gateway, we need this in the YAML format and Swagger. So I have this already prepared. Let me open IntelliJ and I will show it. So obviously, if you clone the GitHub repository, which I provided in the description, you would see a file called user API. And this is really OpenAPI or Swagger specification. This time you need to use 2.0, and I will speak about some details in the specification, the important stuff. So before going into the details of the spec, I will show as well a link of the extension from Google, and it is a page called OpenAPI extension, and those are Google attributes which you can use, or extensions. In my example, I will show a couple of them, like xGoogle backend, where you will specify the backend endpoints, but there is more, so you can check for the whole specification. If you want to craft your own API specification, I suggest that you download the Swagger editor, install it or run it locally, and you can play around with the whole definition. So back to the OpenAPI specification, our user API YAML. So the first element is saying that we have a version of the specification 2.0, which is required, and then some standard metadata like description, version, title. And now first important element is, from my point of view, host. This host represents the host for the API gateway. We will change this when we start the deployment of the API gateway. Then we have a base path. So usually base path is there to specify the version. This is the first version of the specification. Next one, schemas, HTTP, HTTPS. We want the HTTPS. And now again, interesting part of elements, and this is the security. We want to use API keys, and therefore we need to specify that. And more or less, this is the proper way how to secure the Open API or our API in the API gateway using the API key. There are other ones, and I will show this in the documentation. Then, to properly know to which backend service or backend implementation of the API gateway should route all the traffic, we need to specify x minus Google minus backend and specify the address. So this is the fake address for the Cloud Function, which is not yet deployed. If we have this deployed, we will change it. And now we can optionally use some xGoogle management elements, like for metrics and limits and cost. And therefore this is defined, and for each of the HTTP method like get, post, put and delete, I defined value of the metrics. Then similarly for quota is linking to the metrics, and we will have a quota, for example, that we allow 10 requests, which is value, for each project per minute. Yeah, this has 5, 3, 1, and we will also show if it works or not. Then there is a standard definition for the context path. Because we are implementing the user API, we will have a /user, and basically definition goes by the HTTP methods. So first one is get. We will get all the users, so it means the response will be application JSON or specifically type array, and with the user defined type. What is important, this one, the get, I didn't want it to secure, just to show for the purpose of the demo, so the security is empty. Then what else? For the post, we have a similar configuration. For the post, you need to provide in the body the object, so it's required, and the schema goes again to the user. Similarly for put or delete. After this, there are some interesting sections for the security definitions, which means we want to use the API key, and we want to have a query in the HTTP by using the keyword key or name key, and then this equals to our API key. We will show that. Then other definitions are for the user object, which has 4 properties right now, and that's the whole OpenAPI. So most important or best practices for the crafting of OpenAPI: format this properly. That's obvious. Then use the security, at least by using the API key. Properly define the Google backend services or addresses. Define the host. And if you like, optionally define these limits, which can be handy because you want to implement some rate limiting. Okay, and I know you are impatient, so let's go to the Google Cloud Console and start doing something. So I assume you already have a project. Yeah? If not, please create one from scratch or use your present one if you can, and let's start doing some things here. So first of all, I would recommend to do a service account. Why? Because we want to have the service account which will be used for a Google Cloud Function, but as well in the API gateway. And basically it would allow to call or make a call from API gateway to Google Cloud Function securely. So let's create one. Let's go to the navigation menu, then let's go to IAM and admin, and in the service accounts we can create a brand new by clicking create service account. We should put a name. It could be whatever name you like, but let me pick the user function name. Then click continue, and by that we need to as well add the invoker, Cloud Function invoker role. And that's the most important thing. Click done, and the service account is created. So when we have this service account, what we will do, we will use it then later on in our commands or when we will deploy the Cloud Function or API gateway. So I need to update then my README file with this service account whenever I use it to have a proper one like this. So that's the first thing, yeah. So we have a service account, which is nice, okay. But now, because we want to build this, we also need to deploy the Cloud Function. So I could do that in the Cloud Console manually clicking, or I could again go to the IDEA and use the commands which I have prepared. So if it's your first time, you should set up the Cloud SDK locally. For that one, you can use the gcloud out login command. Let's try it. This will open a browser. And in browser, you need to select the account which you use to register your project, then approve all the changes that will be set up. That's great. Let's continue. Let's switch back. And if you have multiple projects, it is good practice to use gcloud config set project and to switch to another project which you want to use for the API gateway. I already have the switch, so I can skip this one, which is great, but otherwise you need to configure that. So what we will do next is we will deploy our Cloud Function in this region with Java 17, and most importantly with our service account. So let's copy paste and let's deploy that as well. If you have a fresh new project, the APIs or services are not enabled, so you need to enable them. Press yes. could be that you need to enable that multiple times. Be patient, it takes some time. And again, second time, let's enable the second API. And most probably there will be a question if you want to allow unauthenticated invocations of the function. No, we want those functions be protected. So now it will try to deploy. Sometimes it doesn't work, like this time. So the solution is try it again. So let's try the command again. And hopefully this second time it will work. So now it started to deploy. We can go to the Google Cloud Console to see if there is something going on in the function. So you can search for the function or navigate through the menu and go to the Cloud function, and you should see something going on, but not finished yet. Okay, now it's deployed. So let's go to the Cloud Console. Let's pick our function and let's try to trigger it from the browser. So we have a URL. If we navigate to the trigger, and it is forbidden. That's good, it's protected. We don't want that the function is public. Let's go to the testing, and what we can do, we can click on the test function and it should return the empty something, which looks good. It didn't crash. Cool. So we are done with the deployment of the function, of the backend function, but what is good, we have this URL, the public URL for the Cloud function. So let's copy paste this. And we should update this in our Google backend. So you see, it is here. Let's update it. Luckily, it's the same. Don't forget this step. Let's go back to the Cloud Console and let's start to create the API gateway. So either search or navigate through the menu until you find the API gateway. And you see that on this page, we still need to enable some APIs. So let's do that and let's launch. It will maybe ask us some questions. Let's click enable, because this is needed to enable those kind of APIs which are related to the API gateway. First one done. Let's go with the second. Let's enable it. And when we are done with that, we can launch the last one, enable. And now we are in the screen where we can really create API gateway. So let's click create, and we need to specify a couple of inputs in this wizard. So we want definitely to create a new API. What would be the name? I would say user API. Sounds nice. Or then you see that this changed and it already created for us the managed service name. This, please don't forget to copy paste this and put it into the API spec. So let's open the user API YAML, and this goes to the host. Please paste it and save. And now go back to Google Cloud Console. Now we should create an API config, and we already have it locally. So let's open it, and it's our user API YAML. What name do we want? It could be user API config. And as I said, it's best practice to create a service account. So we have our own user function service account. That's great. And we also need to name somehow the gateway. If you have multiple ones, name it as well with some suffix like API gateway EU or something like that. Then you need to set the location. As I said, there are different locations. We will use Europe West, but you see there are a couple of them. Not all of the locations or region are there. So that's good, and it looks fine. I would say we can click on the create. And now it will take ages, so be patient, grab a coffee or whatever. The same stuff you can do with commands. So here in the README file there are a couple of commands which you can use to replicate the same stuff which we did in the Cloud Console. And maybe it is a bit faster than the console, because sometimes the console has a problem with caching and it's not really refreshed properly. But we need to wait. And now I'm back after a couple of minutes. The gateway and everything is deployed. So you can see it here. On the overview, no request yet. Some details of the configuration. That's all great. Configs, which we deployed, and the gateway. This is important. We need to have this gateway URL so we can do some tests. And you obviously can try it in the browser. And surprise, this is not defined. Why? Because there is a context. v1 and user. Why this didn't work? There are still two things which we need to do. First of all, we need to enable the API. I will show you how. Go to the context menu, go to the API and services, enable API and services. Click on the enable. And if you don't know the name, it should be some user API. We can go to the private ones, and the last one should be our own, so we can enable it. Yes, of course we want. Now this is enabled. You can also see here some metrics, quotas, and so on. The second thing which we need to do is to create API key. And we want to have the API key just for our user API. And this key we will copy paste and use later on in our curl calls. So for example, if we open the README file, there is already prepared stuff for the API, and the key we will replace. So the key is replaced. Of course, I will also replace the URL, because this is URL which we have the gateway currently installed on. So all of this needs to be replaced. Easy like that, and then we will try it. And it says forbidden. Why? Because we did something wrong. What we forgot is to execute some command which will assign the role. So that is done. We also should restrict the key, because the key is really public now, and usually we want to restrict the key for the API which we use it, which is the user API. So click save, and that's If you navigate to the credentials, you should see your API key. And now, if you refresh the browser, you will see the empty response, which is OK. So let's also test the other methods. So the first one is obvious. It is the get all. Let's try it. Returns 200 code and empty. Good. Now let's use the post and enter some data. Now it was saying 201 created. Are we sure? Let's go to the browser and refresh. Yes, we see something. We also can check another one, which is put. Let's try to put something. And we basically receive the updated version. And the last one we will try to delete. So let's delete. And it didn't went well because it says not found. Why? Because I by mistake did put a wrong user which is not there. And username Bob doesn't exist, it is a Ted. So let's put Ted, and it is deleted, no content. Cool, let's refresh, we get all users, nobody is there. So we delete it. So you see, the API works as we want it. Now let's do some more experiments. What we can do is, let's try to do multiple calls for whatever. Did you notice that the get is not having the API key because it's unprotected? But let's try to do the same API call again and again and again and again. You know what I'm aiming for? I was aiming to get the quota error. So this is our configuration, which we configured in here with the metrics and quotas. You also in the web can see this. If you go to the quotas link, that should show the limits and then the current usage. Maybe it's not perfect, but you know, you have at least some idea what are the currents. So this is, the quota is working, yeah, so I was already blocked. What else you can see here is the metrics or some kind of monitoring information, but usually you need to place more calls. Or you can go to API gateway. Let's navigate there. And there you should see also some monitoring information, like here you already see some requests were made, some errors were produced, and so on. So you would have a nice graph and some logs. Yeah, that's cool. Or if we speak about monitoring, we can leverage the Google monitoring solution. If we navigate down below, we should see something like monitoring overview or dashboard. And what we can do, and usually you do that, you are creating alerts. So let's create a simple alert with some simple policy. I will not go into the details, but there are some 3 metrics which you can use. Let's go for the proxy and we can counter requests. So let's click apply and we can add a filter or whatever, but add a threshold, and we say that threshold value is 5. And when this happens, we would want to be notified by email, so we will create a notification email. I already have one. Let's click OK. And yeah, let's add a alert for too many requests, something like that. If we are happy with that, let's create the policy and we should receive then the emails. Cool. So that's for monitoring. If we would be speaking about security, I already told there are in general two methods, API keys and service accounts. The link will be in the description. So we use the API key to protect our API. Of course, with that you can set up quotas and so on. Service accounts you can look by yourself. For pricing, there is as well a new nice page. And you can see that what are the prices per billing account, and basically that 2 millions are for free, and then there are some prices which are going on. Ingress is free. Ingress pricing are depending on the terabytes which the consumers are getting, and if you want to have more, you can try the pricing calculator. So that's for the pricing. Next is quotas and limits. This is also interesting to know. And in general, there are some limitations. So for example, you can have total 50 APIs, 100 APIs per API and 5 per region. But remember, this is per one project and you can have multiple projects. And then there is a rate limit of 10 million units per 100 seconds, which is too much. Of course, that can be changed or enhanced. There are also limits for payload sizes. And if you want to increase the quota, you can raise a quota ticket to increase it usually. So that's it for quotas. And then maybe some general questions. So for example, is it possible to have a custom endpoint or custom domain for the API gateway? Yes, it is possible, but you need to use the cloud load balancer, use the certificates, and use your own domain. So it will be routed through the cloud load balancer. And basically you can on the top get Cloud Armor for better security, caching with Cloud CDN. This is something which you would like to build on production. Multiple locations for the API gateways, having your own URL for the public API, and so on. And at the end, what we would do if we don't use the solution, we should delete this. There are 2 or more options. Of course, you can delete this to the Cloud Console or via the Cloud SDK. As I shown, there are plenty of commands there, and there is also a cleanup section which you can run to delete all of this, inclusive and that's done. And because we don't trust the command line, let's go to the front end. Let's refresh and we'll see that there is no API gateway anymore. Let's navigate to the cloud function and we also should see nothing there. Yeah, great. What we as well can clean up is the API key, so it will not be misused. Let's select the API key and let's delete this. Great, we are done. And what next? API gateway is not the only option. A lot of people or organizations are using Google other product, which is APG, or similar product like Spring Cloud Gateway, Zool from Netflix, but that is for some other video. What is actually missing in the API gateway? For me, it's stuff like the developer portal, or call it an API hub, but it depends if you really need that functionality. If yes, then better look at something like API, or run your own developer portal, which is also easy. And you can store the OpenApi specification in Git or some other repository, and then load it in this developer portal. Or you can do whatever you want. in Google Cloud. Hey, and that's all, folks. So thank you for watching. Hope you liked the video. So also keep watching all the other upcoming or other videos on the channel. Click on the like, click subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments. If you have some ideas for some upcoming videos, also let me know that. And that's all. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.